One of the things we struggle with as songwriters is motivating ourselves to write. Even though we may be incredibly passionate about our songwriting, it can still be really difficult to actually sit down and do it. Dorothy Parker, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, but she's got a great quote, which is that writing is the act of applying the butt to the seat. You just got to sit down and do it. So to that end, I'm going to talk about a couple of things that I do to help motivate myself to write. One of the first things that I do is set up a dedicated place at home to write. Make things as easy as you can for yourself to do it. This could be as simple as a small desk and a chair in the corner of the living room. Just create a dedicated place to do it, and it makes it a little bit easier to go and write. Keep your writing tools out and available. A guitar on a stand is infinitely easier to pick up and play than one that's sitting in a case. I know that it only takes about 12 seconds to walk over, open a guitar case, and take out the guitar. But it is amazing to me how if the guitar is already out and sitting on a stand, you're so much more likely to pick it up. Second of all, just keep paper there, a rhyming dictionary, a thesaurus, your laptop, whatever will make the act of sitting down to write easier by having a dedicated place to do it. Another thing to do is create a bit of a routine. Setting a time of day to write is a really, really good way to keep yourself focused. And now, I know that writing is an artistic and creative endeavor, and something about putting it on a schedule is a little bit odd. But remember, we're talking about becoming a professional at this thing, and professionals are on schedules as a rule. So think about a routine that's comfortable for you. If you know, for example, that every morning at 8 a.m. before you go into work, you're going to have an hour to sit down, or maybe at 6 p.m. right before you get home from work, but before you're going to dinner. If you've got time then, make that your time to write and keep that as a time that you go to consistently to do it. They say that it takes a few weeks of doing something to make it a habit. Hang in there, and this will get easier and easier to do. So that routine, that time of day, can be extremely helpful. Another thing you can do to make the actual act of sitting down a little bit easier is keep a file of unfinished song ideas. One of the most daunting things to do as a writer is to sit down to a blank page. But by keeping a folder either on your laptop or actual paper of your unfinished lyrics or rough recordings, you'll just be that much more likely to say, okay, I can sit down because I'll pick up where I left off. That way, you won't have to climb the mountain from the bottom every single time you sit down to write. Sometimes it actually feels good to start fresh, but if you're stuck, don't forget to look in that unfinished file folder. That can be a real help. Another thing that you can do to motivate yourself is give yourself an actual assignment. What I mean by this is sometimes being able to write about anything in the world means that you're not able to write about anything in the world. It just seems so broad. But if, for example, you tell yourself that you're going to write a song with one chord that you've never used before, or a very specific lyric topic, it'll give some shape and structure to what would otherwise be kind of a too wide open writing situation. Another great way to keep yourself motivated to write is to find a co-writer. And there are a couple of reasons for this. One, it makes you accountable to someone else to get together to write. Two, it is exactly half the effort if two people are working on a song instead of one. And third, what happens with a great collaboration is that you will end up with a better song than either one of you could have written alone. Now remember, I said a great collaboration. So what you're going to want to do, and I've mentioned this earlier, find a collaborator who is strong where you're weak and vice versa, so that you can complement each other and create a song that is stronger than either one of you could have done alone. And finally, this is one of my all-time favorites. Tell yourself that you're only going to sit down and write for 5 minutes. This works amazingly because at the end of the day, let's say you're really tired and you've scheduled your time to write and you're thinking, I just can't do it. if you tell yourself you're going to sit down for 5 minutes, one of two things will happen. One, you'll sit down for 5 minutes, and at the very least, you will have honored your promise to yourself to try to write that day. But more often than not, there's something about the resistance to write that 5 minutes will break through. A lot of times, our biggest breakthroughs happen when we maybe know subconsciously that something good is back there, and we're almost scared to face it. And by telling yourself that you're only going to give yourself this little bite-sized 5 minutes to work will allow you to sit down and then, boom, the whole thing will blossom, and you'll end up writing something that is incredible that you never would have written if you hadn't at least made yourself sit down and write for 5 minutes.